This is episode 69.
69. Okay, I got it right. I told Holly last night. 69.
Yeah. Oh.
So quitting versus walking away.
Quitting versus walking away. Oh, we gotta write down one more thing.
Let me think. Okay, so I've got the quitting thing down versus walking away.
Okay. Ready?
Give me a few more seconds.
No worries. Get all situated.
Okay, I'm good. I was just trying to figure out the different points I was going to hit.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just making sure that we're actually recording on video, and it looks like we are. So we're rocking and rolling.
Check.
1, 2. We're good. All right, here we go. Today, I have gotten out of all trouble, or rather, I have cast out all trouble, for it was not outside, but within, and in my opinions. Friends, this is the Formless Podcast, episode number 69. I got it correct this time. 69, with Tyler, the superhuman, and me, Dustin. How goes it this morning?
Oh, we're good. Yeah. Been a good, long, hot week. You know, actually it kind of cooled down a little bit, but it was still still hot.
It did cool down, but man, lately, like later on in the afternoon, by about 3 o'clock, that temp starts climbing.
Just climbing, and it's like, okay, air conditioning time.
Yeah. You're almost like halfway through the day, and like, ooh, I think we slipped by another day without it getting like 105, 110, and then all of a sudden, like, seems like right around 3 o'clock, that temperature just starts creeping up, and next thing you know, sweating.
It's sweating, and then it seems like it goes until about like 7-ish or something like that.
I walked outside at 9 o'clock at night. I've still been like,
I know.
man.
Yeah. So, but other than that, yeah, we've just been keeping cool and
Right on.
trying to relax.
Right on.
Enjoying the second half of the summer now. I think we're halfway through summer.
Yeah. Just get through August and September, October, and then it'll start cooling off. We're usually around then. That's what it's like living in real Northern California, folks.
Yeah, we're not. Everyone says, "Oh, Northern California, you're from the Bay Area."
Yeah.
No, that's Central California.
Exactly.
At least in our opinion.
Doesn't that peeve you off just a little bit?
That's Northern Central California.
Yeah. I always tell people we live in the good part of California.
Yeah. With all the trees and mountains.
Shh, don't tell everybody how pretty it is. It's really hot all the time. That reminds me, I do have to give out a quick little shout out. I have an interesting story of some events that have happened this week.
Okay.
So about a year and a half ago now, I lost my job, got a new job. In between that period, I was out of work for about 4 or 5 months, and I was really trying to make some things happen. I did a little bit of side work with Mark, the guy who edits our podcast and previous guest, and tried to do a little bit of everything there, just trying to make some funds come in, because I was unable to rely on the federal government for assistance. They were not very helpful. So anyway, that's another topic for another time. But I had reached out to a friend who was a fishing guide and a guy I went to high school with. His name's Seth. He's an awesome dude. And he's a fishing guide. He's an arborist. He's he's a real go-getter. He does a little bit of everything. Cool. And he lives in a remote town, community called Cohasset. And they got affected by the park fire, like really bad.
That's down there by Chico, right?
Outside of Chico, Paradise, Cohasset, all that whole area. Paradise Fire was a couple of years back. This is the park fire. It started in Upper Bidwell Park, which is inside Chico city limits. And Bidwell Park, if you've never been, it's a beautiful place. It's amazing. It's a huge national park. I think it's a national park. It might be a state park, but it's a huge wilderness park and tons of trails and wildlife and everything. And there was a fire that was started there, and it spread. It's through 3 or 4 counties right now, but it's over 400,000 acres. It's still going strong. But my friend Seth reached out to me, and I tried to help him build a fishing website for his fishing guide service, and we did that. But some things transpired, and it just got put on hold for a little bit. But he called me out of the blue last week when we were recording and left a message. I always turn my phone on to silent or do not disturb. And so as I was going home, I turned my phone back on, and I got this notification from Seth, who I hadn't talked to in a while. And he's like, "Hey, I've been out of the loop for a while. Been fighting these fires in my little town of Cohasset." And so he asked me to help him start a Facebook group and basically just get some attention towards it. And I'm a layman at best when it comes to social media. Like, I know how to do stuff, but I don't know how to do it the right way. You know, it's all trial and error. And excuse me. Anyway, he's like, "I don't know how to do that. I need your help. And I know that you're the guy to do it." And I was like, "Well, that's big for you. I mean, that's like huge of you to say, very nice of you to say, but like, I'm not the guy, but I'll do what I can for you." Long story short, I start this group for him. It's the most popular thing I've ever done as far as social media is concerned. There's like 160 something followers now. It's called Rebuilding Cohasset. And Cohasset is spelled Cohassett. So if you have the chance and you're on Facebook, please go give it a check out. There's a bunch of stuff there. A lot of people lost their homes, lost everything they have. And it's really unfortunate it didn't have to be this way. But they've got some resources. They've got the state behind them. They've got some pretty big names. Hopefully they'll get some help, but there's still a lot of people there that need help. A lot of retired people, a lot of people that they just lost everything. And I personally know what that's like a little bit because I was evacuated during the car fire.
Right.
So it hits me in a certain, there's a tender part of my heart that is really hurt for them and those people. So if you get the chance, definitely go out and take a look at it. And Cohasset is a really beautiful piece of Northern California. And those people could use any kind of charities or goodwill or help that or just positive thoughts. And if you see it, definitely give it a check out and look there.
And that was a Facebook page?
Yeah, it's a Facebook group. Yeah,
okay.
Kind of like our Facebook group we have for the podcast. So it's just another one, and it's open, and it's actually growing faster than I can keep up with it, with everything else that I'm doing, work and the podcast and my family and everything. I'm like struggling to keep up with it. So I'm gonna take care of some things tonight, this afternoon.
And you're running it.
I'm running it.
Oh, okay.
For my friend Seth.
Yeah. Okay.
I got it started and there's a whole bunch of issues with that whole aspect because I don't live in Cohasset, so I don't know all the people that are there. So trying to decipher whose intentions are good and who's out to try and like, excuse me, weasel money out of victims is it's a little hard, but we're getting there. So I just wanted to give those people a shout out because I know what some of that's like. The not knowing if you have a home to go home to or if you've lost everything, which kind of ties into our subject of what we're going to talk about today of like when to quit or when to walk away, or is there a difference between those two? So hopefully that's a good smooth segue into that. If not, well, we'll adjust, right?
Well, I hope everything goes good with that page. And
well, it's starting. It's starting to, and hopefully it helps and gives people some sort of a resource. You know, where to look, where's their help? Because there is people that want to help. There's always people that want to help, and there's organizations that can help people. Whether it's an insurance company or the Red Cross or AAA or FEMA or there's always organizations, and there's nonprofits and all sorts of different groups, churches and things that can help and do help, but sometimes they don't know where to get those resources.
Right. They just have this overall, there's this park fire. And how do I get money to the people there?
And it had a lot of attention at first, and now that attention's kind of gone away, but those people still need help. Yeah. And that fire's still going. And it just had a flare up like Wednesday or Thursday night. And there's some more communities that are affected or threatened by that. So it hasn't gone away yet. And it's probably not going to go away for a while, at least until the weather changes or until they get a break on it. And I don't think they're getting a break on it for a while with the weather the way it is, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I think last I checked, I'm going to look on my phone here in a second, but I think last I checked it was like 430,000 or something like that.
I think the last thing I saw was 450,000 acres.
I remember I when it was getting real bad a couple days or like a day or so in, I remember somebody told me, they said they had read that fire burned in like 6 hours what it took the car fire like 16 days or something.
Yeah.
That's not the exact quote, I don't know, but
it exploded.
Yeah. It's just like, and I was, yeah.
And a lot of that area hadn't burned for a long time, and it hadn't been, I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think it had been logged or any kind of cleanup.
No.
And
according to CAL FIRE, it's just under 430,000 acres. Yeah.
Okay, so I was wrong. Yeah, it's massive.
I'm glad you were wrong.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So,
but my friend Seth was pretty instrumental in getting people together to get a small group of people together to fight the fires and save what they could. But fire is unpredictable, and you never know what's going to happen. And the weather could change, the wind can change. It's
who knows?
The old saying, "Playing with fire" is true. It's dangerous, and you got to be careful out there. So, but
knowing when to quit versus walking away.
Is there a difference between the two?
Or no, I said that wrong. It's quitting versus knowing when to walk away. Yeah, I said that backwards. Yeah, so quitting versus knowing when to walk away. Yeah, that's an interesting subject. The first thing that comes to mind is, for me, is when you quit something, that's almost like reactionary. It's reactionary, right? When you quit, it's almost like you're mad, you're upset,
your ego is involved.
Ooh.
That's a
mic drop.
The ego is a sensitive subject for me sometimes.
Your ego is involved. Yeah, I could see that. I could see. We've all been in activities and maybe a sports team or maybe like a piano lessons or something like that. And people, maybe they're not getting something, you know, maybe they're just not getting how to do piano lessons or guitar, and maybe they just need to approach it from a different angle, and then they get frustrated that they're not learning how to play the right chords, right? Is that I'm not a musician.
Yeah.
And then they get frustrated and get emotional, and understandably sometimes get emotional. I get emotional, and you know, throw up the hands and say, "I'm done with this," you know, and then they walk away and they quit.
I think like specific for like guitar.
Yeah.
Excuse me. There's a certain amount of pain involved.
Yeah.
You build calluses. And so the amount of time that you can practice until you've built those calluses up on your fingers is very short-lived. It's all going to depend on how much you can tolerate that irritation. I mean, it's not like pain. It's not like cutting yourself or like breaking a leg or something like that. But it involves repetitive pressure on your fingertips. And your fingertips are fairly sensitive, right? I mean, you can just push into your fingernail into your tips, and you feel that almost immediately.
Yeah.
When you have those calluses built up, you can take a lot more of that pressure, but it requires some determination. You have to kind of like play through that if you want to improve, and if you want to build those calluses so you can play longer. But it involves a little bit of struggle, and I really like that. I think anything worth doing, whether it's a relationship, a martial art, an art, a skill, it involves a bit of struggle.
100%.
Yeah, there's some foundational things that you have to learn in any skill that is going to require you to struggle a little. And I think the biggest issue there, especially for like playing guitar, when I learned how to play guitar, I learned a lot from a good friend of mine who I grew up with. He was like right across the street from me. And his dad was an incredible musician. He was one of those guys who could like watch something happen and like figure it out and be like, oh, that's how you do it. And like took to it like a duck to water.
Wow.
And his son is very much that way. Like he just picked up the guitar and it was like he knew what he was supposed to do. And it's probably because he grew up around his dad who was a musician and played music. So, but he just had this natural ability to learn. And I would struggle with that so hard. And as a result, like comparing myself to him, I always felt inadequate. And comparison is the thief of all joy. Right?
Mic drop.
Yeah. But like, so I just like through the first like probably 2 years that I was learning how to play guitar, I just was like, I suck. Because I was just comparing myself to two very naturally talented musicians. One who had been playing guitar longer than I had been alive and knew songs that you could literally listen to the radio and go, oh, they're playing this chord progression. And his son who lived with his dad. So anytime there was a free moment, they could play guitar at any time. Whereas I was like, would wait until after school and go over there and play until dinner time and then go home and eat dinner, or like weasel my way into eating dinner with them so I could play guitar, you know? So like my scope of practice and lessons being taught was very limited, you know? And it was like kind of comparing, as an adult, I look back and go, well, you're comparing apples to oranges. Like he was immersed in that. He lived there. He could do that anytime he wanted. Whereas my window of opportunity was much smaller. And so I wasn't really comparing it on an equal playing field, if that makes sense.
100%.
Looking back on it, at the time, I was just like, well, you suck, you know, you should give up. But I loved doing it. It was a lot of fun, and it was something to do with my friend, and we just kept doing it. We did it for, gosh, probably 15 years or so until he moved away.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so this friend, that he was naturally talented. He was just
Yeah, he had a lot of musical talent, and he just understood the theory of it, and like he could figure it out. Like it just came to him naturally. Whereas I had to work at everything. Yeah, like they could hear music, and they could hear the individual notes, and like they'd be like, "Oh, listen to this part right here," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" You know, or you're in the key of A, and you know we're playing in the key of A, but you're playing in the key of E. You know, and it's like if you play here, you can play with us, and you'll be in music. You know, you'll be in the same key, and it's like, what's that? You know, so there was just the book knowledge and the skill level were two different things for them and me.
Yeah. Man, if I was to go learn an instrument, I would want to learn from somebody like you who had to struggle. I don't want to learn from somebody naturally talented because have they gone through that struggle?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think they do. They did
their own.
They did, struggle. But it's different.
Yeah.
And struggle's different for everybody. I mean, we've all been in here with incredibly talented martial artists who were like amazing, and to watch them is just like it's awe-inspiring, you know. And then you've been in with people that have really worked hard, and they didn't come by it naturally, but they overcame that inability because of hard work and dedication, and like the zero quit. Yeah. The whole quit thing for me is been kind of I don't think I'm a quitter. Like I don't come by that naturally. What I do come by naturally is kicking the dirt and crying about how it sucks. Right?
Yeah.
But I just keep coming back because I don't know any different. But I'm just stubborn that way, I guess. But there I have quit things, and there is a line, like, and there's like I don't know if there's like a guideline or a hard fast rule, but usually it has to do like, is this going to affect negatively my personal life or my physical, like my health, or is this just not the right thing for me? And so I think I try to make that distinction. Sometimes that line gets blurred though.
Yeah.
Because like when we were training for our black belt, that was hard. And there were times where like I didn't want to train.
You didn't want to come.
Like I was like, okay, I got to do this again. I worked all week. I went to 3 classes already, and I'm going to go train again. And that was like it was like, okay, well, how bad do you want this? Kind of thing, you know, like, okay, if this is something that's still has worth and value to you, then you need to embrace that suck for a little while longer.
Yep.
You know, I don't know, what were some of your thoughts on that?
No, I was just everything. I think you're right. I think that a good teacher is someone who has worked at something very hard, you know, and natural talent, natural ability. That's great if somebody has that. I want to learn from somebody who's had the struggle, because somebody who's struggled and has thought, do I quit, you know, or do I walk away type thing. That person has gone through more of a process, in my opinion. Like you said, everyone's got their own, you know, everyone's got the struggle's different for everyone. I get that. But that person that really had to work at it, right? The person who maybe struggled a little bit, oh, I don't know if I should keep going or not, and then decided to, and then they're very naturally talented in something. That is a struggle. The person that really came to terms and said, man, I'm like plugging away at this, plugging away at learning this guitar, and it just ain't working, it just ain't jiving, but then decided to go on. Usually right after that moment is when they have their breakthrough.
Yeah.
You know, and that person, that's the process I want to learn from that person.
Well, and I think that those people will understand others' trials,
yes,
and struggles a little bit more than the person who's just like good from right out of the gate.
Yeah, right from the womb.
Unless they are very empathetic, you know, and if you can see outside the box, you know, then those people can overcome that, I think. But I agree. I think somebody who's experienced victories and defeats and struggles make for a more well-rounded instructor or teacher, for sure.
Yeah, no. But so you stuck with it. You didn't walk away,
No,
nor did you quit.
I really, really enjoyed it. I have not picked up a guitar. Literally, I've not picked up a guitar in probably 5 or more years. I played in bands and stuff, and did that whole thing. And I just, after having kids and things, being married, it lost its luster for me a little bit. And I still love music, and I still love to listen to music. I just don't, there's not enough time in my day for it right now. And I'll it's still there. Like, I still have all of my guitars and all of my equipment. It's still there, and I see it almost every single day. It's just over here, right?
It's on pause.
And it's kind of heartbreaking, considering how much time I've put into it, to not play anymore. It's a little bit like I've lost all the calluses on my fingers, and that took probably a couple of years
to build them up.
For them to go away.
Oh.
Like they were like almost like sandpaper at one point, because I played so much and so often. Like, I can rub it on the table or like rub it on somebody's arm, and they'd be like, "Ooh, what is that?" You know. But yeah, I haven't done it in so long that I don't even know. Like, I know all the stuff that I still know, if that makes sense, but I don't know if I have the muscle memory or the dexterity to do it anymore.
Wow.
At that, like, definitely the rust is built way up, so it would take me a long time to get back to where I was. But yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, it sounds like, like you said, it's just on pause. You didn't quit, and you didn't walk away, or you walked away temporarily.
Yeah.
But you're like, I'm going to be back.
I'll be back. Just take a pause for a minute.
Priorities.
Yeah, priorities.
Yeah, and it seems like the difference between giving up quitting versus walking away, that's, like I said, it's like intent, right? It seems like it's intent. Like, quitting is like an emotional reaction almost, in my opinion. And you throw your hands up and you say, I'm no good at this guitar, and you quit and you just storm away. Versus walking away is like, hey, I may get good at this, and it might take more time for me to learn this guitar, but I just don't have the time right now, because I don't have the money I got to work to earn money to feed my family. I don't have that extra money to take guitar lessons or to buy the next better guitar that'll maybe make me a little bit better player.
Yeah.
It's not the guitar, it's the player. But
well, and I think the difference too is, like, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
Like, we've all had jobs that stunk.
Yep.
And we've all had good jobs. And at certain points in your life, you've always, like, you walk away from something, or you quit, or you get laid off or whatever. How do you feel about it after the fact?
Mic drop.
Well, like, do you feel good about that? Like, I've done all I can do, and the situation dictates that I have to do something else now.
Yeah.
I can still walk away from that and go, well, I did everything I can do, or that guy's a jerk. This guy made me feel this way. What's there's a difference there, obviously. But,
yeah, it seems to be like intent is in the moment, and then how's it gonna make you feel after? Like I've talked before about quitting my high school soccer team, and that was the last time I played soccer as a junior in high school. And long story short, I talked about it before. The coach was very hard on me, and I can look back now, literally. Let's see, I'm 38, so this is like 21 years ago, 21 or 22 years ago, and I can look back and be like, I instead of quitting that soccer team, I should have walked away. And you're right, it's how you feel. And the coach was hard on me, and I could have I could have done things differently. Of course, I was 17, so you don't have everything figured out.
Yeah, you think you do.
You think you do. Yeah. But yeah, and so he was essentially hard on me and put me in positions I didn't want to play. And I see what he was doing, and I can even look back now and be like, wow, I really don't agree with that. Like, he just, anyways.
Yeah.
But I quit the team, and I turned in my uniform. I still remember walking into the PE teacher's office and turning in the uniform and just saying, I quit. I think I literally said, I'm quitting the soccer team. And I should have, if I could go back in a time machine, I think I would go explain to myself and be like, you need to just walk away. Because it wasn't working out, it wasn't, the relationship wasn't good between the coach and me. And, but I should have, but now quitting, that's a sport I haven't returned to. I would like to one day.
And so, like, you would go about it a different way?
I would just go about it a different way, rather than being like what I did at that time, which was very reactionary, just saying, mad at the coach and
mad at everything,
and the world's falling apart, and because it's not going good, and I would go.
Not to interrupt.
Yeah,
I don't want to ruin your train of thought, but like, do you think if you would have been more diplomatic about it, maybe you could have had a different outcome?
Absolutely, yeah. And so I think but I quit, and I turned in my uniform. I quit, and it was very much a, like, well, I'm out of here type thing. The heck with this. Versus like, okay, looking at the situation and being like, okay, I need, this is not a good thing with this coach relationship, and he's clearly not treating the other players this way, and so this is very much, it felt to me very targeted. So it's like, this is not a good relationship to have, a coach player relationship. And going and saying like, hey, this is not working out, and this is why I'm leaving this team. That's how I would do it now. But of course, when you're 17,
you lack the field of view. And I think it has to do with experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think some of those experiences, you have to learn those lessons the hard way.
Yep.
We've all done things where you're like back and you go,
why did I do that?
That was not smooth.
Yeah.
But like anything else, relationships matter. And I heard this quote about, and it pertained to marriage, and I don't know who gave it, so I saw it on social media somewhere, but the guy was talking about marriage not being 50-50. It's 100% effort on both parts. Regardless of social status or regardless, any kind of partnership is 100% effort off both people, because you're not always going to be at your best.
Right.
Like, one day you may be going 100, you might have to go 110% because your partner or your spouse or your whatever relationship, maybe they're sick, maybe they're unable to do something to contribute because they're working on something else. Maybe they're unavailable, whatever the case may be. to give more.
Wow. Pick up the slack.
And then on the flip side of that, it's going to turn. One day you're going to be sick or you're going to be busy with something. And so that other partner is going to have to pick up that slack. That's how it should work. And I agree with that. I think that's really awesome. You have to be dedicated to that. Like, and speaking of like a marriage, but like you can transfer that to just about anything. Out here at the dojo, if you want to succeed, you have to give 100%, and you have to make sure your partners are giving 100%. But not everybody can do that all the time, and sometimes life gets in the way. You get busy, you get sick, a relative gets sick, and you have to pull back. But it's up to those other people that are like, hey, texting you or calling you up going, hey, hope everything's all right. Let me know if you need anything. When can you come back? That kind of thing, that gentle urging, when we were going through our ranks, you were always like, okay, let's do it left side.
Let's switch it up.
Let's do it this way. Let's do it. And it was very good, and it was very motivating because it was like, okay, we'll do one more. That to me was a really good example of our partnership, of you going 110% for whatever reason I couldn't do it that day. And I think we all bring something to the table a little bit, whether it's a different idea or a way to practice or a way to. Everybody's contributing in their own special way,
right?
And I think that helps, even when you're struggling, that helps. So it's not like it makes it that much harder to quit. You know what I mean?
Gives the accountability.
Yeah. Like we're accountable to each other for this, right? So we're texting each other, calling each other. Hey, we're still on. What topics we're going to talk about? What new thing we're going to bring to the table? If you were the only one doing that, you're going to get burned out from carrying that torch all the time.
Yep.
If I'm doing that all the time, I'm going to get burned out. But our focus is here, and so we all are. The goal is aligned. We're trying to do that, and I think that makes it that much harder to walk away from something or quit. And it's cohesiveness. It's a teamwork thing. And I think any good group or business or marriage has to find that cohesiveness, that link, some common thing to work towards.
Yeah. Preach it again. Yeah, that's so it goes down to like a relationship. What are you quitting? What is your relationship to the guitar lessons?
Exactly. Or the school or the marriage or the job.
Yeah, like what are you quitting versus what are you walking away from? And can you afford that?
Yeah. It's always good to have a plan B.
Yep.
If things aren't working the way it needs to work, then plan B is optimal.
Yeah. You start working on your plan B hopefully before you walked away from plan A.
Yeah. The best time to look for a new job is when you currently have one, right? Not after you quit. At least financially speaking. I don't know about marriage speaking. That would probably be a bad idea.
Yeah, and walking away, that seems to be more of a tactical decision. That's more, tactical, strategic, however you want to call it. But, somebody saying, hey, I'm working this job that is overnights and I'm not getting enough sun. I had a friend that worked an overnight job.
Yeah.
And stocking dairy in a local grocery store. And he went to the doctor, and the doctor said your health is kind of deteriorating because you're not getting enough sun. because you're working nights and you're
Sleeping
during the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I mean, that's one that's like, that's where you consider like you say, wow, this is actually not good for my health. Like I've got to walk away from working nights and find something during the day if I can. I mean, considering the circumstances, if you can do that, but
yeah,
but yeah, it seems to be like definitely walking away is more of a tactical decision. Taking
it seems the wiser approach.
Yeah.
Versus quitting, where it's just, I mean, come on, it's just mainly an ego thing.
Yeah.
Really.
Yep.
Like, oh, this person doesn't see eye to eye with me. Screw them, I quit.
Yeah, it's usually in the moment too.
Mm-hmm.
Really in the moment.
Yeah. As opposed to like cooler heads always prevail. Right?
Yeah.
Kind of detach a little bit and go, okay, is there another approach that I can take here?
But like I said, that decision to quit soccer, like that has followed me into adulthood, and I have regretted quitting, and I wished I would have really stuck it out, and
really?
Or just took a different approach, at least walked away on my own terms versus just being like, the heck with this.
Yeah.
Here's my uniform. Yeah. I'm done, and like that. And so I think that's definitely the wiser approach, in my experience, So, but again, I think it goes back to intent. I think the intent of the whole thing is are you just reacting, which would be quitting, versus walking away, which would be like intentional, hopefully thought out, and saying, oh, hey, this isn't what I need, this thing, it's not working out in my life. Hobbies, we have a lot of hobbies, and sometimes the hobbies we do can get expensive.
Yeah, it's like, I can pay my mortgage, or I can do this fun thing.
Yeah, do the fun thing. And it's like, and especially in this day and age with inflation and the way things are going, it's like, wow, you've really got to watch your money and be intentional about saying like, hey, I can't spend money over there, like, because I don't have money to pay the mortgage or whatever, like
gas in the car.
The gas. But sometimes do you think that it's easy? Do you think sometimes those decisions are made for us instead?
Oh yeah. I think sometimes life has a way of making decisions for you, and you're just like,
it's almost like you arrive at it.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, here's my sign.
Yeah, here's
the universe telling me that this is not okay.
Yeah, and it's like that decision can sometimes come to quit versus walking away in the walking away sense that you can almost see the decision getting closer and closer and closer and closer to you, and you're like, okay, it's time. I heard a story one time. It was a kid who was 16, and I was talking to him about doing martial arts, and he said, I did it for 4 years and it was fun. And I was like, oh, and he did some kung fu style here locally. And I said, oh, did you get your black belt? He's like, no, I got to red belt. And I was like, oh, why didn't you go for your black belt? He's like, oh, I ended up leaving the dojo, and I was like, really, you left? Why? And he in a very mature way for a 16-year-old, and especially knowing this guy, how he was acting at the time, he took a pause and he took a deep breath and goes, it was just time to leave. It was just time to leave. And I was like, wow, there must have been a lot behind that. But that sounded like, for whatever reason, he went on to tell me a little bit more details. And, but it just sounded like that it was something with the relationship he had there, wasn't working out for him and his whole family, which it turned out to be. And so, I mean, his brothers and everyone that was going there too. So I got a little bit more, but it sounded like that was like a walk away type thing. It was just real interesting. And it was sad too, because I was like, man, you were that close to your red belt, or you were that close to your black belt.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, man, you should take it up again, like.
That is pretty wise.
Yeah.
Pretty wise. I was trying to think of a story. You said like there's a sign.
Yeah.
There's a sign. I don't know. I can't think of anything like a sign that was like, oh, I know of signs that I've seen to make me keep going.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like in my own, like my marriage to my wife, like when we were dating, my wife's very quiet and she's like internalizing everything and doesn't talk a lot. I mean, she does, but like not, like if there's nothing to say, she's not going to be the first person to strike up the conversation, generally. And I was always really confused when we first started dating, because I talk a lot, and I usually was the one instigating the conversations because I liked her, and I was like trying to get a feel for whether or not the feelings were mutual. And so like we would go on dates and she'd be real quiet and I'd be talking the whole time, and at the end of the date I'd always ask her like, okay, do you want to do this again? Would you like to go out with me again sometime? And she'd be like, yeah. Okay, cool. And then I'm like, what? All right, okay, so I plan a date and do the whole thing over again, and at the end of the date I'd be like, do you want to do this again? And there wasn't any red flag to tell me like, oh, stop dating this girl, because I've dated girls like there's red flags where you're like, oh, go away, run.
Yeah.
And then, but there wasn't anything like that. But I knew I liked her and I knew I wanted to keep dating her, but I wasn't getting any like positive feedback. Right? And so, without going into too much, eventually we got over that and I got through that. But like by communicating and just keep talking, eventually she felt comfortable enough with me to where she was like, yeah, let's do this, or that would be a cool thing to do. And then there was some
give and take
there. But I try not to tell too much into the story because I don't know how much she would want me to tell without embarrassing her on a public platform like this. It's a fun story to tell with friends. I can embarrass her a little bit, but not on not on a free platform that anyone can listen to. I don't think she'd appreciate that much. But that was like I didn't see anything that was like, okay, this is going to be detrimental to my health if I keep going here.
Yeah.
Whereas there were other people that I had dated beforehand where I was like, this is probably not going to end well. So cut and run, I don't know any other. I can't think of any other stories right now that would like where I saw a sign and was like, oh, that was not.
That was.
This is a time to quit.
Yep.
Here's your sign. Here's your, from the heavens.
Yeah, my current girlfriend, she was working as a traveling concierge nurse, and so she worked for billionaires and people worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and she was their personal nurse, and she would do 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off and fly out of state and come back for 2 weeks, then fly and back and forth. Every 2 weeks she was in a different spot. She would come home for 2 weeks and be back there. And so she just noticed her health declining, and she was like, this job it's paying so well. It's like, I don't even want to say how much it was, but it was paid very, very well, very well. And but she's like, it's not worth the stress, and traveling all the time, and it was taking a toll on
her personal life,
everything in her personal life. Yeah. And so she said the moment she arrived at her decision, she started to feel like a weight was lifted off of her, and she was like, I need to, like, she calls it, she says, well, I quit my job, but it, like, that's just the physical words of it. She actually was thinking about it ahead of time and weighed the risks and said, and calculated it and said, if I stay here, I'm going to keep, my health is going to continually decline, and I need to leave, like, essentially stop.
Well, see, and that, to me, that's like a good sign.
That's a good sign, yeah.
That's time to quit.
Yeah.
It's not doing you any favors.
Yeah.
But that has to weigh in, though, when you're making good money. That affects your decision-making process.
Yeah.
Because it's like, ooh, this is lucrative. It's that whole dangling the carrot in front of you, like, oh, I'm almost at that carrot.
And right when she was about to quit, or I'm sorry, well, she called it quitting, but leave the job, which I would call, she walked away. She, her boss said, well, how much do you want to make to stay on with me? And she was like, that you couldn't pay me enough to keep doing this. Her boss literally said, I think the exact wording was, name your price.
Oh, really?
Name your price. And like, she could have like doubled what she was already making, like crazy good money,
Yeah.
Per day as a nurse. And she could have easily doubled it. And that wasn't worth it to her. And so she walked away.
Wow.
And since then, her former employer has contacted her once or twice, at least once, I think more than once, saying like, hey, you want to come back? Like,
wow.
Like, how much do you want? And she's like, nope, no, I'm not going back.
Wow.
And so I'm like, that really says something right there, that, wow, that was the right decision to walk away. And she said, she's like, it's interesting because you said, how do you feel afterwards? And she said, I made the right decision. And she has stuck by that since then. She's like, I don't miss any of it. And then even apart from her former employer, who would then send her around, with all these contracts, these nursing contracts, some of the individual people that she took care of just called her directly and said, hey, we want to hire you personally. And
not through
her former employer in that business, but we want to hire you personally. And she could have probably even asked for more than that, than what her boss would have gotten, would have offered her. But she said, nope, not worth it.
Wow.
And so
that's wild.
That's when that was the right decision, because the money can't buy your health.
No. And you only got one ticket.
That's it.
So, yeah. Wow. I think
that's inspiring for me.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's wise of her to know, because I know plenty of people who would have, myself included, who would have been like, oh, let me think about that, because that money sounds nice.
Yeah.
That's tempting. Wow. Cool. Very cool. What do you think? You got anything else?
I think that's it. I just think, like we talked about the topic of quitting versus walking away. I think it's intent, because you're physically leaving either way. And then I think, like you said, it's how do you feel afterwards. But you don't know. The only way, you can't know how you're going to feel afterwards. You just have to put yourself in that situation and say, if I quit in this emotional state.
If you're doing it from an emotional point, you're not
thinking.
Yeah.
You're not thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah. Versus walking away, maybe you say like, okay, like how will I feel tomorrow? How will I feel a week from now? A month from now? A year from now?
I think those are important questions to ask yourself. Like, what will walking away or quitting do for me?
And role play it in your head.
Play that out a little bit. Play that scenario out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think think that's good.
I think
we
that
said
covers
all we
the
can
topic.
say. Yeah. So friends, we have a YouTube page. You should subscribe to it. You also should subscribe to this podcast if you're listening to it on iTunes or Apple Play or Spotify or SoundCloud or any of the other ones. If you haven't subscribed already, do so now. If you want to reach out to us with questions, comments, concerns for our health, you can do so at theformlesspod@gmail.com or Twitter at theformlesspod. We have a Facebook group called The Formless Pod. We have an Instagram account called The Formless Pod. Any one of those you can reach out to us at. Also, do not walk around naked. We have clothes that we could sell you on our website, theformlesspod.com. Thank you very much, friends. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and don't quit. Keep going. Nice.
That was good.
That was good. Yeah, I thought of that this morning as I was driving down here. Don't walk around naked.
That was good.
Buy clothes.